My name is Sophie. I'm 36 years old and live with my husband Leonardo. I work for a financial company in Boston. I think we make a decent living, especially since I've been there for many years. I always take my job seriously. I wasn't particularly smart, but I felt unbeatable when it came to working hard. As a result, I often get important projects, and I believe I'm trusted by my bosses and colleagues. Recently, there's been a problem at work with Audrey. She's 32 younger than me, and she's very capable and well regarded at work. At first, I thought it made sense since she was cannibalized from a rival company, but she seems to have a difficult personality. She's not satisfied unless she's the best, and when I became project leader, she was openly angry, saying, "Why is Sophie the leader? I'm more qualified," according to a colleague. She never said it to me directly, but I knew she didn't like me. One day during lunch, I went out with some colleagues, and Audrey sat at a different table, seemingly avoiding me. I thought there might be a misunderstanding, so I tried to talk to her, but she quickly left the table to talk with others. Confused by her behavior, I asked a colleague who said Audrey didn't like that I stood out and was successful. When I did well at work, instead of praising me, Audrey's jealousy was apparent. "I could do better," she would say discontentedly, I heard. If she saw me praised by a supervisor, she'd say things like, "That supervisor praises anyone too easily. Don't get carried away just because of that." It was troublesome. I decided not to worry about Audrey and focus on my work, which seemed to fuel her feelings even more. One day, after a successful project, we had a party at a nearby bar. Audrey and I both attended, sitting separately, but managed to enjoy ourselves. When the party ended, Audrey and I ended up sharing a taxi. 2 colleagues got off first, leaving just us. The silence was awkward. A few minutes later, a taxi arrived in front of my house. Then, as I got out of my house, I ran into Leonardo, who seemed to have been grocery shopping. I explained the situation to him, and he suggested inviting Audrey in for coffee. "It's late and so sudden." I couldn't stand the awkwardness with Audrey any longer. Yeah, that's true." Leonardo agreed, which relieved me, but Audrey's response was surprising. "Oh, no, it's okay. I'll come in." And just like that, Audrey was coming over to our house. Reluctantly, I made coffee for Audrey. In the living room, Leonardo and Audrey were chatting, and despite it being their first meeting, they were getting along well. Audrey seemed genuinely interested in Leonardo's hobbies and what he likes. She even asked detailed questions about his private life, which made me feel uncomfortable. After a long talk, Audrey left. "Audrey's a good person," Leonardo remarked, clearly in a good mood. A few days after that, a serious incident occurred. Important data for the project I was working on had gone missing. It was supposed to be in the file, but only the crucial data was absent. I apologized to my boss and frantically recreated it. The next day, while printing materials for a meeting, I realized the data was incorrect. With the meeting time close, I hurriedly prepared the correct documents. However, it took longer than expected, and I was late for the meeting. I was called in by my boss and reprimanded. "What's been going on with you lately? This isn't like you," he said, and I felt downhearted. This had never happened before, and I was at a loss. I tried to motivate myself to focus on my work, but my efforts seemed in vain as more troubles arose. There was a complaint from a significant client. I had asked a colleague to send a quote, but it was sent with errors unnoticed. I checked the quote myself, and it includes figures I didn't recognize. I apologized to the client and dealt with it immediately. Then my boss came and said, "I'm sorry, but you're off the project." Afterward, Audrey approached with a nasty grin and loudly said for everyone to hear, "Sophie, you're not doing well at all. Shall I take over for you?" The boss replaced me with Audrey on the project. I suspected it was Audrey's doing, but without evidence, I didn't know what to do and felt isolated. Similar incidents kept happening around me. I felt like I was losing trust from my boss and colleagues. Continuously dealing with troubles as they arose, I became physically and mentally exhausted. Then another blow struck me in my fragile state. On my way back from a client to the office, Leonardo's car passed by me. At a red light, I caught up to his car to say hi, but Leonardo was unmistakably driving, and when I saw the passenger, I was frozen. It was Audrey. Why? How could this be? I remembered Audrey had said she was going to a client in the morning and had left the office. I was paralyzed by the shock. Seeing such an upsetting sight, I couldn't help but suspect something between Leonardo and Audrey. Back at the office, I couldn't stop pondering over it and couldn't focus on my work. That night, I confronted Leonardo about the scene I witnessed that noon. "I saw you. You met with Audrey during the date, didn't you?" He responded casually, I just happened to meet Audrey. She said she was going back to the office, so I gave her a ride." Leonardo said so calmly. I was not convinced. It seemed like Leonardo was really fond of Audrey. "Audrey is really a great person. I feel so good talking to her." Leonardo was praising Audrey without consideration for my feelings. "It's rare to find someone who can consider others' feelings while talking." Leonardo said this excitedly, unaware of my current distress at work, and my discomfort with Audrey. Hearing him speak of Audrey made my irritation uncontrollable, especially since the car he was driving was bought by me. I was dissatisfied just with the fact that Audrey was riding in the car. What am I to Leonardo? I began to wonder. And the sadness only grew as Leonardo, who had been with me until now, praised Audrey instead of me. Honestly, I didn't want to be with Leonardo, who cared about someone else. I wanted to clarify the relationship between Leonardo and Audrey. However, just seeing Leonardo with Audrey during the day wasn't evidence of his infidelity. I decided to stop asking Leonardo about his relationship with Audrey. Then, a few days later, while Leonardo was in the bath, Leonardo's mobile phone rang as I was doing the dishes. It sounded like a WhatsApp notification. Casually, I looked at the phone screen and froze. The WhatsApp message was from Audrey. Unfortunately, Leonardo's mobile phone was secured, and I couldn't see the content of the WhatsApp messages. But now I knew that Leonardo and Audrey were in contact, which deepened my suspicions of infidelity. Why does it have to be Audrey, of all people? She had taken my position at the company and now seemed to be on the verge of taking my husband too. My frustration and anger only doubled. I considered various ways to catch Leonardo and Audrey in a relationship. I was too busy with work to follow Leonardo around. Unable to bear it any longer, the next day I decided to hire a detective agency. Weeks later, the detective agency easily caught Leonardo and Audrey in the act. It is said that it was not difficult to catch the cheating scene. They must have been meeting frequently. Now I had a clear reason for divorce. When I first started suspecting Leonardo might be involved with Audrey, I felt betrayed and it was unbearable than the other party with Audrey. Now all I wanted was to divorce Leonardo as soon as possible. I rushed home with a report from the detective agency. When I entered, I saw Leonardo relaxing in the living room. Noticing my odd behavior, Leonardo asked, "What? What's the matter?" So I silently handed him the report from the detective agency. Leonardo was shocked, but soon turned shameless. "So, you want to divorce? Fine, I'll sign it." He admitted it so easily. I had expected some argument and lost my motivation. I didn't argue with Leonardo either. I wanted him to become unrelated to me as soon as possible. When I presented the pre-prepared divorce papers, Leonardo signed them without hesitation. The next day, Leonardo packed his belongings and left. Is this what marriage is? I had been robbed of my job by Audrey, and now my private life has been destroyed. How much more did she intend to hurt me? What Audrey did was not socially acceptable. I would have to talk about my divorce at the company. Then my colleagues would know that Audrey had taken my husband. At that time, I would think of retribution against Leonardo and Audrey. Right now, too many things were happening for me to think clearly. A few days later, I was called by my boss at the company. Surprisingly, I was assigned an important project for the company. It was the perfect chance for redemption. I felt fully energized, thinking I could erase my previous failures. Along with that came the undeniable feeling of anxiety about what to do if such a situation arose again. I conveyed my feelings to the project team with all my might. Please lend me your strength, everyone. At first, the reaction from the project's members was lukewarm, but by giving directions energetically and getting actively involved myself, I managed to boost their morale. Eventually, the team members began to trust what I said and enjoyed working together. That's when it happened. A colleague who was also a team member, Hannah, called me aside to talk. Taken to a separate room, she suddenly apologized. "I'm so sorry for everything up until now." I was confused, not knowing what she was referring to. "What? What are you talking about?" I encouraged Hannah to look up and explain. "I saw it. I saw Audrey switching your documents." It all made sense to me. "I've been unable to say it until now. I'm really sorry." Hannah was Audrey's junior and had been silenced by her senior, Audrey. Hannah asked me to keep her confession a secret from Audrey. I wished Hannah had told me sooner, but I realized she must have been suffering by keeping it to herself. With that thought, I couldn't bring myself to blame her. "Don't worry about it. Thank you for having the courage to tell me. Now, we have to make sure this project is a success. Lend me your strength." I told Hannah and then focused on my work without thinking about Audrey. As a result, the project was a success, and my confidence was restored. Audrey seemed frustrated watching my recovery. It was around this time that I began to feel like I was getting back to my usual performance at work. Audrey must have been feeling the pressure from my progress, as she started having more work-related issues and received more warnings from our boss. It was during a chance encounter with Audrey in the company's refreshment room. "Don't get too cocky just because you've had a little success." I was amazed at how far her jealousy would go. "I've been wanting to ask you for a while. Have I done something to you?" It was the question I had always wanted to ask Audrey. That smug look on your face annoys me. It's like you don't care about anyone else at all. For the first time, I realized how Audrey perceived me. "Well, good for you. I'm quitting the company." "What? You're quitting?" I was shocked by Audrey's unexpected announcement. "Don't think you've won. I'm leaving because I don't need to work anymore." She spat those words at me and left. A few days later, Audrey really did quit the company. The office was peaceful without Audrey. Free from her harassment, I continued to work as I wished. Then, unexpectedly, I met Audrey again. She had come to collect some necessary documents from the company. "I'm getting married to Leonardo," she told me with a triumphant look. "Congratulations." I didn't care who Leonardo, now a stranger to me, chose to marry. Pretending to be strong, huh? I genuinely didn't care, but Audrey continued with a mocking laugh. Sophie has to keep working, but I don't have to work at all because I have Leonardo. I thought that Leonardo had started to work hard. That would be great in its own right. Leonardo is a doctor, so he'll support me and my parents. Huh? Who's a doctor? It's obviously Leonardo. This, I thought, was quite amusing. It seems that in Audrey's mind, Leonardo had become a doctor. Leonardo must have lied to make himself look better. Audrey's words made me burst into laughter. Oh, really? A part-time at the hospital? Can he support 3 people? What? Part-time? Doctors don't do part-time. But Leonardo is a part-time worker at a cleaning company. Audrey started to panic at my words. But he always said he was so busy with so many patients. Leonardo is indeed a janitor, so he does go to the hospital. That's true. But even if Leonardo works hard, becoming a full-time employee at a cleaning company, becoming a doctor is impossible. Having many patients must be tough to clean up after. Audrey turned red with anger at my words. Humph. If it turns out he lied, I won't forgive him. Don't you dare feel like you've won over me. Is it okay for you to say that? If I wanted to, I could claim compensation from you guys, you know. I shot back at Audrey, who remained defiant. I never thought part-time Leonardo could pay me compensation. After all, I was the one who supported the household, and I'm not particularly struggling financially. More than anything, I couldn't stand with being someone who betrayed me. That's why I wanted to divorce Leonardo quickly, and had no intention of claiming any compensation. But Audrey's attitude towards me was starting to infuriate me. Despite the fact I had no thoughts about Audrey, she had harassed me terribly and made my life difficult. Moreover, after taking Leonardo away, I reached my limit with Audrey's attitude. If Leonardo is a doctor, he can pay up right away, right? Audrey started to panic, the always confident one. This was the first time I saw Audrey like this. There's no evidence for that. Leonardo had always been part-time, so most of our household income was from my salary. Dependent on me, Leonardo didn't try to become a full-time employee and lived a lazy life. The silver lining in sadness was that we didn't have children, so we weren't struggling even with Leonardo being part-time. Really? Didn't you ask Leonardo? I have plenty of evidence, thanks to the detective agency I hired. Do whatever you want. Audrey spat those words at me and hurried off. She will probably confront Leonardo now. Now I finally understood why Audrey quit the company. Now that I understand, I decided to file for compensation. A few days later, with the documents received from the detective agency, I decided to seek a lawyer's assistance. Honestly, I didn't really care about the compensation. But it wouldn't be fair if the 2 people who had caused me so much pain didn't suffer a little too. I had been feeling stagnant, but this move made me finally feel refreshed. A few weeks later, I heard from my lawyer that the 2 had broken up. Audrey couldn't find a company to pay her the salary she used to get, and with her high pride, I figured it would be hard for her to find a new job. Then a few days later, I heard about Audrey from a colleague. She wanted to return to this company, but the other colleagues had prevented it because they felt work was difficult with her around. It's the result of all the scheming she did out of jealousy. I still hadn't received any compensation, but just knowing that Audrey was struggling and that Leonardo was still his usual self was enough for me. I was satisfied with the karmic outcome. So I decided to patiently wait for the compensation from the 2. Currently, I am busier at work, juggling multiple projects, and a promotion is set for the next term. The absence of Audrey and the cessation of her harassment allowed me to work smoothly. Now, just like before, I can enjoy working happily with my colleagues. Lately, I've become engrossed in taking photos with my camera. On my days off, I go out in my car and take pictures of various landscapes. I've come to realize how much freedom there is in being single. And every day is a joy. Therefore, while I no longer care about what happens to those two, I do hope they learn from this experience and reflect a little.